Over this weekend, Eminem released a new album, Music to Be Murdered By, and in it, he gets kind of political and comes down on a side of the gun control issue in the United States that you probably wouldn't expect. Eminem comes down on the side of being very pro-gun control, and he does it by empathetically telling the story of the gunman from Las Vegas. Now, you would think that if a lot of people were going to say, hey, let's be against gun control, let's get rid of guns, they would just outright condemn this guy and say what he did was horrible and the guns are horrible, we need to get rid of it all. But no, Eminem actually tells the story from this guy's perspective in what feels like a very risky move, because there's nobody out there saying, hey, can we just be a little more empathetic and try to understand this guy's perspective? There's value to doing that, as we'll talk about. But I think for Eminem to jump in there and do that, I mean, it feels cool that he's talking about something and, you know, making a stand for something he believes in without being too pushy about it. But at the same time, you kind of wonder, like, in some ways, is this career suicide? And I don't think it is. Let me explain what's going on in the song. So he says, I don't want to be alone in darkness, suggesting that there's something going on inside this guy, something that we're not privy to, that we don't understand, which makes it a whole lot more difficult for us to just be outraged and outright condemn him. Now, obviously, we have to condemn those kinds of acts, but when somebody does something like that, there's always more to the story, right? So Eminem jumps into that and he says, you know, here I am alone again. Can't get out of this hole I'm in. It's like the walls are closing in, suggesting that this guy had some kind of struggle that we aren't aware of. Feels like I'm loathing on Las Vegas, confirming this is about the Las Vegas shooter. But I'd make you this small wager if I bet you I'll be in tomorrow's paper, who would the odds favor? Which seems to be a little bit of a dig at the media for making money off by sensationalizing more than they need to be these kinds of public mass shootings, you know, by putting pictures of the killers up and giving lots of information and making it very intense and hitting that news cycle, which some people theorize actually makes it seem to future shooters that, you know, this is a way to get attention, and so they're more likely to do it because they see that happening. It sends the wrong kind of message, right? So he continues, I'm so much like my father, you would think that I knew him. This guy, apparently, Eminem is saying, didn't have a great upbringing, didn't have a great childhood, and that could be part of what's happening here. We see this line, hello darkness, my old friend, being sung intermittently throughout the song, and that's because it's being sampled from Sounds of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel, a song about people and just kind of general not having the ability to communicate their emotions in a way that helps them be in community with each other, but rather being silent and feeling separated, cut off from other humans, which is obviously part of what's happening here. Eminem continues to rap and he talks about how this guy was drinking a lot of alcohol and doing some kinds of drugs. And then he continues in verse 2, because I keep peeking out the curtain from the hotel. Wait, is this the whole crowd? I thought the shit was sold out. But it's only the opening act. It's early, don't overreact. Then something told me relax and just hope for the show to be packed. And then at the bottom now it's just magazines sprawled out on the floor. F the media. I'm going all out. This is war. And I think verse 2 is really interesting, one of the most risky ones to have written, because Eminem is not just being purely empathetical and trying to get, you know, understand this guy's perspective in an attempt to help him. And he's also not outright condemning the guy either. He doesn't outright with his own voice condemn the guy in this entire song, which I think is probably a big thing for a lot of people to take a moment to react to. Also, it means that Eminem may have never been closer to being an artist in his whole life, because this is powerful. Let me explain. In verse 2, he just kind of talks about things happening, kind of just this guy thinking about it in a very casual way. And that's because Eminem is building up the story here. He's helping you get inside this guy's mind, easing you into it, taking his sweet time to do so, just with these little details. The guy is worried that there won't be enough people here. Seems like an unimportant fact. The important fact is that he was doing drugs, he had guns, he was shooting people, he committed suicide eventually, right? That's what's important. But Eminem says, no, let's take a verse to kind of just slowly build up to it. And that makes the ending more powerful and also helps us to better understand what's going on. A very big artistic risk from Eminem, but it pays off because it prepares us for what happens in verse 3, where he raps, finger on the trigger, but I'm a licensed owner with no prior convictions, so lost, the sky's the limit. So my supply's infinite, strapped like I'm a soldier, got him hopping over walls and climbing fences. So this is when the shooting begins, and it makes it so emotionally impactful as, out of the calmness of verse 2 just rips this gunfire, and we jump into the heart of the action here, and it's so intense. But at the same time, Eminem's also getting political here. He's talking about this as a social issue, saying, I'm a license owner, so having to get a license isn't keeping shootings from happening. With no prior convictions, so laws keeping prior convicts from guns is not keeping everybody from doing shootings. The sky's the limit. I can have so many guns and so much ammo. There is no limit on what I can have. And so then the shooting begins, and he's trying to create a lot of emotional impact with that idea and those lines. And at the end, he talks about why this might have happened. He says, but if you'd like to know the reason why I did this, you'll never find a motive. Truth is, I have no idea. I am just as stumped. No signs of mental illness. Just trying to show you the reason why we're so effed. Because by the time it's over, won't make the slightest difference. And it's unclear what he's referring to as making the slightest difference. Probably the shooting itself, but what is it making a difference about? The so effed seems to be just this nihilistic call for, the world is so messed up, everything's so wrong, why not just kill people? Seems to be the thing that Eminem is saying the shooter did, just this sort of philosophical giving up that leads to horrendous acts. And that's why if you don't believe in something and you just, some purpose, you open yourself up to something like this when you start to recognize the evil that's in the world, which takes this song in a very philosophical direction if you spend a lot of time thinking about it. But it's a powerful, powerful ending. And the song continues on with clips from the news anchors talking about different shootings that have happened. And the music and video ends with Eminem making a call for people to do something, to vote for more gun control and to vote for candidates who will support gun control. Now, obviously, that does get very, very political, and he's using his art as a way to influence people to do something, but I don't think that detracts from the power of what he's doing. And two big talking points to come away from this with. Number one, Eminem is doing what an artist should do. He's telling a story. He's taking us on an emotional journey from the perspective of a character. And he's chosen an odd one for sure. It makes sense with his purpose, especially if you consider that the more we can understand somebody like that and empathize with them, the more we can help avoid such kinds of things in the future by identifying with, empathizing with, and helping other people in similar situations. But it's powerful, and it's powerful that he would take the time to tell the story so well and so thoroughly. The second thing that you guys are probably thinking at this point is Eminem the right person to be telling this story? In fact, on the same album, he was caught making light, a lot of people believe, of the Manchester suicide bombings that happened at an Ariana Grande concert. And in previous albums, he's been very free with talks of guns and violence and depictions of violence and doing terrible things to other people. And so a lot of people are concerned, is Eminem the person we need to be hearing this from? But I think it probably just makes the message more powerful. If Eminem of all people is saying this, wow, the tables really have changed and something is really going on if he's the one who's saying that. And that's not me telling anybody what to think or to believe or how to vote or anything like that. I think the most important thing to take away is maybe the same thing that Eminem wanted people to take away, and he told people to go register to vote, and that's a hugely important thing to do. Let your values and your beliefs be heard. I'll be responding to comments on this video over on my Patreon and the Keeping Up with the Comments podcast, so leave a comment with your opinions on this, and within 48 hours, I'm gonna put out a podcast talking about your comments, what you've said, continuing the discussion. And if you're a big fan of Eminem, and really honestly with the skill that he has, if you're a fan of rap, who wouldn't be sure to check out this video I created about how Eminem writes lyrics. It is going to open up everything for you. It's a mathematical analysis, and we went so deep on it. It's really, really fascinating stuff. So be sure to check that out, guys. Thanks for watching, and let me know what you think down below. Talk to you soon.